Good afternoon, everybody. It's Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. Today we're going to be talking about small business resources. These are the resources that are available to you as a small or medium business owner. Maybe you're just starting out your business, or maybe you are getting ready to expand, but it's all different kinds of things that you can use possibly if you are in small business and need some assistance to help your business either start or grow. Now, one of the things that we've been doing in each of these presentations is talking a little bit about a business plan. We have the list of items that are included in the business plan, and then some other essential items that you need to pay attention to when you are starting your business. All of the points that we're going to be talking today cover a variety of these tools. That's why I don't have anything highlighted right now. So they apply to different items at different times. And again, just in case you have a question during the presentation, we covered this just a couple of moments ago, the pod in the upper left-hand corner says Q&A. If you need to ask a question, please type that into the Q&A pod, and we will answer your question either in the presentation or typing out the answer for you. Again, if you need to download the handouts, they are in the lower left-hand corner. I would like to talk a little bit about our agenda today. We're going to talk about resource centers, organizations, networking, advocacy, technology, financing, marketing, and additional resources that don't actually fall under one of those other topics. To help me with this presentation today, Kevin Lust, who is the director of the Illinois Small Business Development Center at Lincoln Land Community College, has graciously given us his time today. And Kevin is an author, a professional speaker, a business planner, and a trainer. He's an instructor for the Roger Dawson's Power Negotiating Institute, in addition to serving as the director of the SBDC for the past 9 years. Imagine that. Kevin, welcome to the webinar, and thank you for joining us today. Would you like to tell the crowd a little bit more about yourself that I missed?
Well, first of all, I don't know that it's so much me being gracious as it is me being glad for the opportunity. So I appreciate the chance to reach out to folks who can use the assistance that we provide through the Illinois Small Business Development Center, and I welcome the chance to do that on a little bit of a broader scale today through Illinois WorkNet. So my thanks more than anything are to you. One thing I would like to add to my background, I started my career in the banking industry and served as a commercial lender, and although that was for a short time and a long time ago, there are some insights there that I think are particularly useful to folks who are starting their own businesses in the event that they don't have all the money that they need to start their business. And so hopefully that will come through a bit today, and certainly we hope that it benefits our clients as they visit with us at the SBDC. And the other thing of it is that I'm a small business owner myself, and as I've worked both as a self-employed individual as well as an employer of a few folks, those insights and into the challenges that people face, they're not universal, but they're certainly quite common. So we'll be bringing a lot of those out today too.
That's very true. Well, let's get going so we can be mindful of everybody's time. We're going to try and keep this to 45 minutes, and we got a lot to cover. What you don't know could potentially hurt you. And one of the things that everybody thinks about is the fact that they can start a business and, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Well, what they don't realize is they need to run the business as well as be great at what it is that they want to do. So I suggest to everybody that they take a look at this E-Myth Revisited. It talks about the 3 types of business owners: an entrepreneur, who is somebody that comes up with the idea but may not be able to have the skills to technically fulfill it. The manager is the person that runs the business. And then the technician is what 70% of people who start their own business actually end up being. They're good at what they do, so they think, okay, I'm going to do that, and it's going to be my business. What they don't always realize is that they may need some help to fulfill some of the requirements, like maybe accounting or marketing, or just finding a location to do their job. So it's a good point to understand that what you don't know isn't always the best thing for you. And so what we're going to do today is talk a little bit more about the resources available to you to help you understand what it is that you don't know.
And before we leave that, Dee, I'd like to just remark that the beauty of today's world is, and in fact, in keeping with the small business theme, is that there are two ways to gather that information that you don't know. One is to learn it, which we're going to talk a great deal about today. But the other side of it is to remember that you can hire it done. And so it's just as important for individuals to recognize where they're deficient. In what areas do they not know the things that they need to know, and sometimes to be willing to pay somebody to help them to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's move on to our next slide, and we want to talk about some of the resource centers that are available to you. And as we all know, Illinois WorkNet centers are scattered across the state of Illinois, and they're great places to help business owners as well as job seekers. And we do have a link, and we do have a pod in our closing polls that has all of these links included within it. So if you don't get them all, you can get those in our closing pod. But the Illinois WorkNet centers are great places for you to meet a business services team member and help you understand or find some of these resources that we're going to be talking about today. So Kevin, you want to go on with Small Business Development Center, since that happens to be your specialty?
Absolutely, near and dear to my heart. So the Illinois Small Business Development Centers exist to provide guidance for business growth, and a lot of times that takes the form of helping an individual who's looking to get their business started, and sometimes it's less about what you don't know than it is about not even knowing that you don't know those things. And so we recommend that folks start their small business journey at the Small Business Development Center. The Illinois Small Business Development Centers are part of a national program. We're sort of the advice-giving arm of the Small Business Administration, and we're there sort of the boots on the ground to work with individuals from start to finish on developing business plans, right up to expanding and growing, and perhaps even someday to exiting their businesses. You'll find at those centers advisors with years of experience in running and developing their own businesses, as well as those with the technical expertise that we talked about before. Sometime you'll find an attorney in an office, or past accountants, or people like myself with a banking background. So it's a really strong place, and it's a great place to get started. Typically you'll find the SBDCs offer training classes as well as, and more importantly, as one-on-one business advice. So you'll want to start your visits there. The Women's Business Development Center is sort of a broader program. There is an SBDC at the Illinois Women's Development Center, a Chicago-based firm, and of course their focus is on providing services and programs to accelerate the women's business community. And so you'll find that many of their advisors have a special propensity or some in-depth knowledge on programs or services that might be available to women in business. The International Business Center, part of the Illinois Chamber, is their goals are to expand the amount of business that people can do internationally. And so they're there to assist foreign trade, and some great resources available to the small business located in Illinois who might be interested in doing business around the world. And then we always urge people to check their not only local colleges and universities, but to reach out to some of the others, because there's some terrific entrepreneurship programs throughout, certainly throughout the state, throughout the country, no doubt. And you'll find that those programs, while oftentimes are rooted in a field of study towards a degree, that there are frequently programs available just to the general public, and so there's the Academy of Entrepreneurial Leadership at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign has some great programs that people can attend. Of course, there are fees for them, but they do have the opportunity to take advantage of those. Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, U of I at Chicago, Illinois State, North Central College. So throughout the state, there are programs devoted to those. As I said, in many of those cases, there will be fees for those classes. With the previous resources that we've mentioned, nearly all the services of those centers are free, or as we like to say at the Illinois SBDC, they're not so much free as they are prepaid. It's your tax.
Prepaid is the operative word there.
Your tax dollars at work. So we always tell people they may as well take advantage of them. They've already paid for them.
That's right. That's right.
Plus, here at our SBDC, we give people a money-back guarantee. They're sure to get their feedback from us if they don't like it.
I like that one. Well, let's talk a little bit about these organizations.
So beyond the context of some of the professional providers of entrepreneurial information, there's some great resources to which people can turn. Again, sometimes with fees associated, but like with SCORE, the first entry on our organization's list, again, a completely free service. And this goes a little bit beyond the notion of the small business development centers, and that the SCORE group, they call themselves Counselors to America's Small Business, and they are a little bit more available for ongoing mentoring and development services within a business. Typically, you'll find SCORE volunteers are previous business owners themselves, or perhaps, again, providers of services to small business. And these are individuals who have decided to either in the later years of their career or sometimes while they're growing their businesses, to give back to their communities. And so they're available to help small business people. And a lot of times you can find a SCORE mentor who has experience directly in your industry. And so we urge people to reach out to their local SCORE chapters.
Yes, one of the things I like about SCORE, too, is they offer a lot of workshops that give you not only information but networking opportunities as well.
Certainly so. And in fact, they have a terrific website at score.org, as you see up there on the list, with any number of preview webinars and different articles, and they've been able to invest a great deal of resources into creating a website that is a kind of a one-stop shop with the support of Bank of America and some others. They've really done a fantastic job of that.
Great.
We
Let's
like
move on to chambers.
Yeah, we like to turn people onto their local chambers as well, because first of all, as you mentioned, that networking component is the value of that's immeasurable. Not just to the big business, which is typically sort of associated with a chamber, but certainly to the smaller business person as well as to the self-employed person. And their local chambers can be a great source of information. They are often in their own right holders of terrific classes and programs. I know our local chamber here, the Greater Springfield Chamber of Commerce, does a great job with their small business network of offering monthly programs. And two, they can be a place of finding new business. There's many chambers will market business to business, chamber to chamber, member to chamber member type programs. Again, we urge people to turn to their local halls of education. The academic folks have recognized the value of entrepreneurship to our overall economy, and you will see, of course, many of the hosts of small business development centers in the state are colleges or universities. You'll find entrepreneurship centers. The Illinois Technology Centers are frequently based there. Our PTAC program, which is our Procurement Technical Assistance Program, in most cases, I think, throughout the state, is housed at colleges or a university throughout the state. Mm-hmm. And then the Goldman Sachs program is kind of an interesting little tool. It's a application-based resource, but there's a lot of great information on there. If you feel like you have a burning interest on developing your business and taking it a step further, you can apply for their education program there. And they have an 11-session course that takes people through the various steps in building an entrepreneurial business or a small business. And so it's kind of an interesting investment on the part of the Goldman Sachs folks.
The last application for the upcoming cohort was June 1st. with the cohort starting in August, but I'm sure they'll have another one after that one's done.
One would hope.
Yes, yeah, we would hope. So let's talk a little bit about networking.
Yeah, we've touched on that word a couple of times already today, and it's I get so, I guess the word is troubled by buzzwords sometimes, that we throw them around so blithely and consistently and regularly that sometimes we miss the meaning of the word, and more importantly, the value of the word. And I think networking is one of those words that maybe in recent years has kind of gotten a little bit of a bad name. It's become a very real business cliche. People throw it out all the time. But if you think through the meaning of it and go back to the networks, and those really speak to the word connections. And I think most people will agree that most business is done because of a connection. And if the business owner, him or herself, can create additional connections beyond what they brought to the table when they first opened, that's where your additional business and consequently your additional revenue is going to come. So I know, you had that slide up early about technicians as being a type of business owner. A lot of times the manager type folks maybe don't view networking as their strong suit, but I would urge all small business owners to devote some energy and attention and consequently some degree of time to networking on a regular basis. And depending on the nature of your business, that might be monthly or weekly or perhaps even daily. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So you can look at some of your trade organizations, and I think the ones that we have listed here are good examples. The Society for Human Resource Management. Dee, were you going for the American Institute of Architects on the second
Yes.
one? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's an example of a trade association that's tied directly to their business. And then the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Actually, the Illinois Manufacturers Association has some great resources through their website, even beyond membership. And then,
yes,
of course,
and
go ahead.
And then the whole list of the trade association from our Illinois WorkNet website has the list of, I think, 113 different organizations that you could check out to see if there's one that is applicable to your career path.
We touch on chambers once again, and just to reinforce the value of networking, most chamber organizations, that's one of their primary functions, is to provide opportunities for people to meet. We used to be housed with our local chamber. We rented space from them, and in getting to know the folks involved there, they often talked about the primary reason that people left their membership from the chamber is that they just didn't feel like they got anything out of it. And I would respond to that it's likely the case of how much did you put into it, and for
Exactly.
somebody to say that they didn't take advantage or they didn't get anything out of the chambers, probably an indication that they didn't attend anything. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of it. Springfield's a big small town, and we see a lot of business to business taking place because people do know one another. And I'm sure that's the case throughout the state, even in our bigger cities, and I guarantee it is in the smaller places. Plus, I've always viewed it, I've held a chamber membership for my own business, even though as a member of Lincoln Land Community College, I'm a member automatically through our group membership. I still maintain my individual business membership because I do see the value of what they do contributing back to the community. And I think
Definitely.
that's too.
Definitely.
You mentioned
Small Business Advocacy Council is currently in the northeastern corner of Illinois, but they are planning on expanding further south into the state of Illinois very soon, in fact. And they have 60 different networking events across the region each month. So as far as networking goes, they have that opportunity as well as the advocacy that they offer that we're going to talk about in the next coming slides. And then Meetup gives you an opportunity to find topical sort of meetings that happen either breakfast, lunch, dinner. I've even seen meetups that are for casual purposes, but you can find a meetup related to information technology, or you can find a meetup related to just small businesses or almost anything. So always check that organization to see what kind of group you might be able to find that can help you network your business as well. Would you like to add anything about either of those options, Kevin?
No, just that I was not familiar with Meetup until we started discussing the material for this program, and I was heartened to see that there's already a Meetup entrepreneur program, Springfield Entrepreneur Networking Meetup, although there's only one attendee so far. I think actually it's tomorrow, and so they're at a place just down the street from us, so I may, actually Thursday, I guess, and I may walk down the street and see what's going on, have myself a cup of coffee as well.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Our next item that you may need assistance with is advocacy. And on here, a lot of the areas, I'm going to just jump to the Small Business Advocacy Council really quickly, but one of the things that they do for small businesses on purpose is talk to the local Illinois government as well as the national government on behalf of small businesses. And chambers of commerce also do that as well. So one of the things that just passed through the legislature on because of the initiative started by the Small Business Advocacy Council was intrastate crowdfunding, and we're going to talk about that in our financing, but it's just something that they did. They help to speak for you so that you have a larger voice. Kevin, would you like to talk about the NACER NFIB?
Yeah, and also throw in one last remark about the chamber. This speaks to my comment of a moment ago that as I maintain my individual business membership in our local chamber, it's to help them to provide these sorts of services, this kind of initiative. And I know our local chamber takes a group every year in what they call a Washington fly-in, and local business owners can get face-to-face meetings with our state legislators, rather our national legislators, Congress and senators, and that sort of thing, you know, is tough to do when you're an individual business owner. When you're a member of a group like the Chamber or the Small Business Advocacy Council, you can find those sorts of opportunities or certainly the chance to have your voice heard through them. So.
Sure.
That's I guess that we're back to the meaning of the word advocacy, like we touched on networking. A couple of national advocacy groups are the National Association for the Self-Employed, as well as the National Federation of Independent Business Owners. And so it's very difficult in the context of one slide, as you've got up there, Dee, or even in the course of chatting a little bit about it. These organizations are, again, they're sole focus is on helping the small business owner and the self-employed individual to succeed in their chosen field. And so the NASE offers entrepreneurs a whole range of resources, and I'd urge you to get on their website and check it out. But there's legal help. You can get reduced rate healthcare insurance, office insurance, credit cards, a lot of different things, as you can at the NFIB website. I would like to direct people to the National Federation of Independent Businesses website because if you work through it, there's some terrific small business webinars and articles that are available for people even though they're not yet members. I don't know the extent to which they limit that, but just some recent articles that I've checked out myself. There was one on 4 signs it's time to upgrade your computers, which as a sort of a state-funded agency is always an ongoing challenge for us to find money to do that. But right after that was 6 most common cybersecurity mistakes that small businesses make. And in going through that, I realized that my personal business was making approximately 6 out of 6 of them. So there's some great information there for you. And then let's make sure to spotlight the last item on our advocacy slide, because I think sometimes that we sit back as not only business owners but as citizens and wonder why things don't change the way we believe that they should change. And I would suggest that oftentimes it's a product of those who are in a position to make the change not knowing how deeply or how how much we want those changes to be made. And so we urge people to create a relationship, a cordial relationship with their elected officials from the minute they open. Locally here, we have an alderman form of government, and so first thing we suggest as our clients get open is to invite their alderman over. Not only is it a great chance to build your business, but I guarantee that elected official will welcome the chance to say hello to a new business in the neighborhood. And then once those relationships are established, as you do run into trouble, if there's a pothole on your street or a parking meter that's gone bad or something like that, then you have that relationship that you can reach out to those folks and let them become the advocate on your behalf to make the change you want to see.
Right. And one of the things that I just heard on the radio this morning was if you have an issue with a piece of legislation that is happening or coming up for vote, send an email to your legislature, to your legislative representative. They will pay attention to an email from you. It's very telling to them, and if they get more than one about something, they really sit up and take notice.
I agree with that, and I think sometimes you'll find different groups will sort of send out a blanket request for that, and they'll even give you a language for it. That has value because people do see it's sort of a way of voting on a regular basis. But if you can give your personal reasons for supporting or being against a particular piece of legislation, and even better, if you can give an example of how that legislation would affect you or your business, that's the sort of thing that those officials can take with them and present as they try to sway the rest of the elected officials to vote their way.
Right. And these advocacy groups, by being a member of them, will help you understand what some of those initiatives are for your small business.
Yeah, Lord knows they're not easy to wade through. You don't want to be sitting around reading House Bill 1129 or something while you're trying to serve your clients. So.
No, not at all. So let's move on to financing. This seems to be a little bit of your area of expertise, so I'm going to let you talk about most of the items on this slide.
Well, I could say that the extent of my expertise is that I recognize how lacking my expertise is in this field, and I can tell you why. The reason why I think the biggest challenge for people who are seeking financing is to recognize that the reasons why the folks who have the money give it to you or don't are not always obvious. And a big reason for that is that people go in with a real emotional tie to their idea and to their business and to their business plan. The lender or the potential investor is going to be looking at it from perhaps not a completely unemotional perspective, but definitely from a more rational, numbers-based most of the time perspective. So as you seek financing, we always talk with folks about, if you have all the money you need to start your business, that's a lot easier. If you don't, it's not that it's harder, it's just more complex. And so you have to build an argument that says, essentially, you're a good bet that your business is a place where the banker or the investor can bet their client's money on your success. So most financing of small business and self-employed businesses starts with your local banks. And of course, sometimes those local banks are large national chains, and that's great too. But you'll start there with a commercial lender. And I just might make that remark to folks so that they understand it going in. There's a difference between commercial loans and the personal loans with which most of us are more commonly familiar. The personal loan, of course, is borrowing money to buy your car or maybe getting a home loan. And those lenders look first and foremost at the present and the past. My wife's in the mortgage business, and she can wade through a whole stack of files. She can underwrite them in an evening because she's essentially looking at, how much money do you make right now, and have you proved it? Do you have the documentation of your tax returns? How much is the house worth, and do we have an appraisal? What's your current income? Do we have, pay stubs? And then we look at the past, which of course is today kind of smushed together in this credit score number that we've come up with. A commercial lender, though, is looking first and foremost at the future. And they're looking again at the likelihood of your business being a success. I I guess really what they're looking at is they're looking at your business being successful enough to pay them back, but that's the essence of it. So you turn first to your lender to help you provide that financing. There are micro lenders too, that if the traditional banking route doesn't succeed for you, a real popular one in Illinois is called Axione Chicago, and we've worked with the folks at Axione. In fact, we close loans here, and those are for individuals. The micro lender serves those individuals who maybe can't work through a traditional bank loan. There's another micro loan program in the southern, or I guess southwestern part of the state, the Justine Peterson program. Justine Peterson is with the SEN, P-E-T-R-S-E-N, if people want to check that out, if they're in Missouri or southern Illinois, even eastern Kansas. And then along the way, there's some alternative lenders and things. And Dee, you brought up the topic a little bit earlier of the crowdfunding opportunities, which are going to be changing here in Illinois, we hope.
Yes, and it has just passed both houses of the legislature. The governor has 60 days to sign the bill. It is anticipated that he will sign it. But what this does is it allows Kevin or I or you as a listener to invest in a small business, a local small business, and you have equity in that business, and it's up to $5,000. And what happens with this is maybe a traditional bank isn't going to give you the loan that you need, but you might be able to gather some crowdfunding to help you supplement, talk to an alternative lender, and then all of these different things come together and help you get enough money to go to the bank and say, I have the money now, would you like to give me the loan? So it just builds, and it helps you get small pieces of things along the way. And as I said earlier, we do have a handout in the lower left-hand corner called Intrastate Equity Crowdfunding that you can find out a little bit more of the details about what is going on with that. And right now, Illinois is the 18th state to have implemented this in the country. And so that helps you with all of that different kinds of information to help with that list above the crowdfunding. But then let's talk about SBA loans.
Yeah, and I'll just make one more remark about crowdfunding, because a lot of times we've had folks here who think, oh, no, you can already do crowdfunding. Well, the difference is the equity. People can actually, hopefully under the new legislation, will be able to sell ownership equity in their business and thus be more attractive. The previous sorts of things that you see are really just donations, or people might get a small token of a coffee mug or a T-shirt or the actual product. And so that is not an investment in ownership, which is, of course, pretty heavily regulated. So
correct.
That's the difference. Also, since we're on a spotlighting differences piece, I went ahead and left this on the slides, even though it's not quite accurate. The SBA does not make loans, well, with the exception of their emergency loans when you have natural disasters, hurricanes and things. And rather, they guarantee loans. And so one of the things that all of our listeners should keep in mind, as well as anybody who's looking to finance their business, is the SBA is not the place you start. And what I mean by that is that the Small Business Administration will guarantee a loan made by, well, for example, the banks that we mentioned to start this. So the SBA really serves as sort of a national cosigner, like when your mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or whomever it was guaranteed your first car loan. The bank wouldn't lend it to you when you were 16, but they said, hey, we'll look to these other folks. Well, the SBA provides that sort of service to the small business owner who needs financing from a bank. And so typically what you'll do is visit with your lenders and find out from them if there's an interest in pursuing it. If they're a little bit hesitant about the loan, maybe there's a lack of collateral, or perhaps the numbers really are just on the edge of what they're comfortable with, then the lender will turn to the SBA and pursue their guarantee. And there's just some additional paperwork that the borrower fills out, et cetera. So just to clarify kind of a common misperception, if you're looking for the support of the Small Business Administration, you needn't speak directly to an SBA officer. Rather, you speak with your lender and work with them. I'll throw out two numbers real quickly that you might hear from your banker regarding SBA guarantees. One is a 7A program, and that's the typical lending program that most borrowers will fall under. And another is called a 504 loan. And the 504 loan program is an SBA guarantee for the big ticket assets and et cetera on that. Okay.
We actually had an entire webinar, Kevin, on financing your business, and I'm going to get the link and add that to our pod at the end so that people can access that.
Oh, I think that's fantastic, and again, so much information in a short time. I know people will benefit from having the opportunity to flesh this slide out a little bit more. I might just throw out then a remark quickly about the CDFI program. That's Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. And again, that institution does not make loans directly to individuals, but there are CDFIs that operate in communities. And so in Illinois, there's a number of them in the Chicago area and some of the suburbs, but they do stretch out to Moline and Quincy and even as far south as DuQuoin. So for business owners in some of our outlying areas within the community, or within the state rather, and I say outlying areas as outlying areas, you might check to see if there is a community development financial institution funded program locally. And the same kind of thing is true with the green industry. You can check out that Clean Energy Trust if, in fact, you have a business that is tied to innovation in clean technology or green technologies or environmentally sustainable businesses. There are some opportunities there for some investments. That's actually an investment resource. Okay.
Great. So what we've got available is a lot of opportunities. Let me move on to the next slide so that we can show you some additional items that are available. We've got a number of grants. You want to talk about those, Kevin?
Well, not particularly. And I'll just tell you why. First thing, going back to our earlier slide about what you know, we use a quote around here from Will Rogers, who said, sometimes, well, the way he phrased it is, it ain't what people don't know that hurts them nearly as much as it is what they know that ain't so. And that's kind of one of those things with grants. People have heard so much about them, and there's so many businesses, and I use that term loosely, who make money off the education to people about grants. And I'll just say in my nearly now 10 years experience at the SBDC, the day I see somebody who was handed a check from some big pot of money that somebody had that was given to them to go and start their business with will be the first day that I see that happen. So I think if you rely a little bit too much, if you're relying on somebody handing you money to start your business, you're probably not in a financial position to start your business. Now, having said that, there are some things like here locally, you mentioned at the bottom the TIF programs. We have some terrific active TIF programs here in Springfield, tax incentive financing, tax increment financing programs. And among those, there's a rent reimbursement, for example, here in Springfield. So if you're renting space, for example, in the downtown tax increment financing district, you can apply before your business opens, and if you're still open a year later, you can be reimbursed up to a certain dollar amount and up to 10 months of your rent. So it's a dynamite program. It is a grant. Works out. The Community Development Block Grant, a lot of communities have those, but again, it's the community receiving the grant, and then in turn, they decide how they'll use that for local individuals. Okay. Just a couple other things up there. Sometimes you'll find Department of Commerce incentives locally. The SSCBI is a treasury program. You can tap into that through that's a United States Treasury program. Venture capital, again, many of the small businesses we talk with are not great candidates for venture capital in that they're the scalability things aren't there. When people watch Shark Tank, those folks are talking the language of venture capitalists, that they can take their whatever dollar investment and not just get repaid that amount or that amount plus some interest, but expand that by many, many multiples of their initial investment. But it is an option. Sometimes people will invest, and that's typically in exchange for ownership or some portion of ownership of the business.
Right.
The Advantage, I'm sorry, just the last thing, that Advantage Illinois program is...
we actually have a webinar coming up at 3 o'clock today that's going to talk about the entire program.
Love it. You'll hear it straight from, well, the expert's mouth. I won't say horses because I know Stan. I hope people will tune in for that one as well.
Yes.
So I think that, the more financing piece, it really is just, I would like to urge people to recognize that probably as they put their business together, it's going to take a lot of different resources financially through some combination of their money as well as other people's money to put together the best deal for them.
All right, great. Let's, marketing, we had an entire webinar on creating marketing plans, and you can see the link. I do have it in our closing pod as well, that we will share with you. The webinar can be found on our YouTube channel or else on our Illinois WorkNet website under the Job Searching and Hiring Videos Starting a Business channel. And we do have an archive. It's there. So Fola asked the question, is there an archive for this webinar? We will be adding this webinar to that archive as well, Fola. So that's, hopefully that answers your question. Let's move on to our technology slide. And one of the things that authenticates your business, for lack of a better word, is the fact that you might have a website. And the other thing that comes along with that website is an email address that says your name at your business name. It helps people understand that you are serious about your business. And in many cases, it does cost you to have a domain name, a few dollars a year. But if you are looking for free web hosting services, we have a link there that you can do, look at the comparison for that. But it's very important to have a presence on the internet these days. And then the next thing that people talk about a lot is search engine optimization, which is what SEO stands for. You want to make sure that you have some good search engine optimization going on, making sure that you've got keywords in the right place, making sure that you have links coming back into your website from other places, making sure that you're doing all of those things that will help you show up in search results. And nowadays, people are looking at what is called long tail searches, meaning I'm looking for a social media strategist in Hampshire, Illinois. That is what a long tail tag would be, and you want to be able to fit in that kind of category when you're looking at that. Last but not least that I'm going to talk about on this slide is social media. And one of the things that you need to be able to do is use the right social media platforms for your business. And we are going to plan a social media webinar for small business owners. It will be coming up in the future. Cloud filing. Kevin, you want to say anything about cloud filing?
Well, I think I would say one thing about the remaining items on this list, and that is that I am not an expert in any of these things, but I'm expert enough to know that I need to work with the people who do know about them. And so, there's a degree of finding things out on your own, and then there's a degree of saying, look, let me turn to the experts and be willing to pay for those services to define the best, for example, which cloud filing resource is best for your business. That's essentially a backup that exists away from your computer, which again is the sort of thing that small business owners, as a mistake, don't think about. So we always
backing up your computer and your files is very important.
Absolutely, and one of those things that people forget. So the cloud filing is an option for that. Salesforce, Act are networking software. They're tools that exist. Just even in 10 years' time, I can just think back to the explosion of all the tools that are available to people today, even in the form of apps on their phones. And so even something as simple as keeping track of your business expenses now can be done with a few clicks of your phone every time you jump in the car or make a transaction or buy something for your business. And those things just didn't exist, certainly not when I was in lending 30 years ago, let alone even 10 years ago when we first started in this. So you cannot sit back and say, well, I don't know anything about that, and just rest on that in order and expect to be successful in today's world.
True. We do have a question from from the audience. It says, where can I go for advice on starting a small business? Free, that is. And you may have missed the beginning of our presentation, Kyler, but small business development centers, in one of the first few slides, we have resource centers that are available, and almost all of them offer you some prepaid assistance because they are funded through federal dollars or state dollars. So you can take a look at that and download the handout from our file pod in the lower left-hand corner. Let's move on to our one of our last slides here. We're going to talk a little bit about incubators, co-working, bartering, and legal services. And I'm going to jump in here with co-working, which is very similar to incubators, but an incubator helps with a start-up business. So if you've got an idea and you need someplace to be, you can go to an incubator. I'm going to let Kevin explain it a little bit more. But co-working is a place for somebody like me who actually works from my home, but maybe needs a place to go for a day or for a meeting or for just to get some additional resources or get some networking. So that's one of the places and things that you can look at for this sort of event. And Kevin, you want to talk about incubators a little bit?
Well, incubators are, as you mentioned, typically for startup businesses or businesses that are ready to move on to their next level of growth. They can be physical space, they can be, usually they are, but the bigger value of working in an incubator setting is that mostly you will find there are additional resources there. You will find, sometimes technical assistance providers like an SBDC will be co-located with an incubator. You'll find particular mentors and things like that associated with the program. A lot of times investors will be paying particular attention to the incubator. Many incubators are based on sort of an application system. Others will be, you pay rent that accelerates or rather that increases as your business develops. You might start off at a very low rate and then move forward. There's about a dozen sort of known or rather larger incubators throughout the state, everywhere from Edwardsville to Evanston and Peoria and points in between. Certainly in Chicago, there's a couple of big ones, 1871 being the largest. And I would urge people to do just a little bit of web research to find out if an incubator could be helpful to them. You mentioned bartering. One thing that I'll remark from my good accounting friend who says you just have to remember bartering is income. So if in fact you're trading your services or your product for another service, you do have to recognize that the value of the service you provide from somebody else is income that could be taxed. So we urge you to turn to your tax advisors to stay on top of that. But it's a great way for businesses to sort of expand what they can do because they can work with other businesses that are in a similar position as they are. In the event that you need legal service and don't feel like you can provide it, do check out the links to the resources that are listed here because just as an example, the Law Project has a small business program that offers legal support to entrepreneurs who are just getting started or have a business that's designed to move them forward. And so they will do a lot of different programs, including small business clinics that they offer. That's in Chicago typically, but boy, there's some great resources from places like the Law Project. So
right.
Again, we're kind of back to where we started, which is don't try to go it alone. We really want people to take advantage of these services. The folks who work there are typically there as much for their own altruistic reasons as they are for a job. When I took this role, for example, I said I told the folks I'd do it for 3 years, and I'm coming up on 10 here in just another couple of weeks. So it's a very gratifying experience, and I hope useful experience for the people that take advantage of our services. And I'm sure everybody that works at these places that we've listed today will feel exactly the same way.
Right, right. One thing that I'd like to say is sometimes free isn't what you're getting it for. Sometimes, as we've mentioned with a lot of these, it's prepaid services through tax dollars. With the software and the technology, sometimes you have to take that with a grain of salt and understand and talk to your accountant or whoever to make sure that what you are going to be using is going to be worthwhile. But in many of the, like the legal services or the SBDC or the SCORE, you're going to find a lot of valuable resources available to you at no cost to you because of tax dollars or volunteer status. So it's a great, great thing that you need to consider moving forward. We're coming up on time here, and if you have any additional questions, please type them into the Q&A pod. We do have our next webinar coming up at 3 o'clock with Stanley Luboff from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. He's going to be talking about Advantage Illinois. And I would truly love to thank Kevin Lust, who is the director of the Illinois Small Business Development Center at the Lincoln Land Community College. He has shared a lot of valuable information for us today, and I really appreciate his time. Thank you so much, Kevin.
You're quite welcome, and thanks to everybody for listening, and good luck. Go visit your SBDC.
And what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to switch over to our closing pod so that if you would like to take a look, all of the links that we talked about today are here in the, you can click on each of those links. I will leave those open as we shift over to our next webinar. We'll be shifting at 3 o'clock for our next webinar. But if you have not, if you want to take a look at each of those links, you can do that. And if you want to download the handouts, they are in the file pod. Please make sure that you take a look. All of those links are also in the presentation itself. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to end the recording now, but we will leave the pod open so that you